Hello and welcome to another episode of the Big... I don't know why I grabbed this mic. It does not work. Welcome to another episode of the Big Money Stylist Podcast. I'm Danielle. This is my co-host, Ani Rivera. And
Hello.
These mics don't do anything. And if you watched last week's episode, I just really want to talk into the mic. I don't know.
I was making sure your mic was actually on. Can you imagine if we did a whole podcast and your mic wasn't on?
Off, yeah.
That'd be hilarious.
So,
don't mind my outfit, guys. It's just my casual Friday wear.
Go to dkwstyling.com and you can see our outfits. It's kind of a funny story. Well, actually, I can tell them the
You
news.
have an announcement to make.
I'm moving! Woo! I'm actually moving 2 houses down.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so we moved into like our dream neighborhood in Orange County like 4 years ago.
Wow, that was
I know it seems. Jesus. I know it seems like we just moved in, and we got this home. I loved it. I was like, oh, this is it. And then there was this house on the corner, and it just kept calling my name, and I was like, that thing is massive. That's like a castle. It
legitimately looks like a castle.
I was like, oh, what would it be? Who would I have to become to?
Is it the White Castle?
Yes.
White Castle.
The White House. The White Castle.
It's White Castle, just like the food place. White Castle.
Well, White Castle. Yeah. So, anyways, I remember. Do you ever you see something and you're like, that's mine? Like you just.
I'm gunning for you.
You're just like, I know that's mine. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, somebody was building it, then somebody bought it, and then this guy came and stayed one time for a week, and then he put it up for sale, and it's been sitting on the market for 2 years, and I got my eye on it, I've got my eye on it, and people are looking at it. I'm like, don't look at my house, don't look at my house. And I told Garrett, I said, I think this is our house, and it's gonna happen sooner than you think. I'm like, and that's how the house we got into now. It was he was like, oh, we're not there yet, there yet, and I was like, we might be. And I always think that we kind of set ourselves back saying oh, I'm not there, I can't do that, I'm not that person. Mm-hmm. And it actually kind of holds you back, right?
Oh,
and for me,
absolutely.
I always tell people, I'm like, well, who would you have to become and what idea do you have to entertain to actually get what you want? So that's kind of how we got this house. We just were like, my mom's a realtor, and she was actually showing this home to one of her bazillionaire friends in Utah, and I was like, Mom, don't show him our house. And then she's like, oh, don't worry, he's not interested. I'm like, good, because that's my house.
But then you're like, why aren't you interested?
Yeah,
in
and then
my
I was
house?
like, but why?
How fucking dare you not be interested in my house?
How are you not interested? But then I was like, good. And she's like, well, he asked me, the realtor was like, do you guys know anyone else that would be interested in this house? She goes, my daughter is really interested, but they think, maybe in a year, they don't know. And he's like, okay. And then we kept looking at it, and then we kept looking into it, and then we finally were like, let's see if we can go get financing. And then we finally got approved, and then we bought the house.
I'm so stoked for you.
Anyways, we get the keys today. We're actually starting. I had another podcast called Date Your Wife that I kind of quit because I had a baby and I was too tired. I was like,
is that why you guys stopped? I wonder.
I literally had so much on my plate, and then when you have a new baby, I just was like, I don't know where this is going.
Yeah.
And I felt like it needed to take not an end but a pause. And I told him, I said, why don't we start Date Your Wife 2.0 version or whatever. So we're gonna actually record in the new house, and that'll be released next week. So
that's so exciting.
We're stoked. I knew we got this house a couple weeks ago, but I wanted to wait till it was signed, money wired, done before I kind of broke the news. We didn't even tell anybody in our neighborhood, and our realtor was like, "There's been a lot of buzz." They're like, "Who's buying that house?" I'm like, we did!
Suckers!
We're literally moving, it's 2 houses down.
Guys, it's 20 feet away.
I was like, can I just collect my shoes and walk down?
Put in a little wagon and walk down the street.
I'm like, is that weird? Just throw all the red bottoms in the wagon? But no, I have, you know what else is funny is that Ani, okay, back to this story. Ani's wearing a sequin dress, and here is why. Yesterday, I do a massive closet clean out every 6 months because I'm a shopaholic. I'm not even ashamed to.
We love it.
I love it.
Great.
Some people have their addictions. Mine is Revolve. So, I just shop a lot. But so every 6 months I clean it out, and I text everybody in my salon. I'm like, guys, come get it. And I actually love seeing you guys wear this stuff. I'm like, it's so cute.
My favorite is sometimes Danielle comes to the salon and she's like, oh my God, I love your dress. I want that. And we're like, it was yours. And she goes, aw.
But I'm just happy that it makes somebody else happy. I'm like, I got to wear it and I felt cute, and now you get to wear it and you look cute. But anyways, Ani, I brought all the clothes to the office. Actually, Katie did. And then they're on these racks. They're hung up on.
Literally racks.
Because I have DKW and MBR geared. So we have these clothes racks. So I come in and I'm shopping my own stuff.
I'm like, put it back. Well, then she's like, sorry, I just want to shower and get cute for the podcast. I'm like, oh yeah? Okay, I'm putting on a gown, bitches.
Well, you know what? I wore that I actually do love that dress. Maybe I'll take it back. I wore that to one of our conventions. I love the bell sleeve.
I know.
And then
how do you eat with this though?
You don't eat in that dress. That's not the point.
See, and I'm like, how do I get food?
Yeah, you don't. It's not an eating dress, Ani. Some shoes are not walking shoes, and that's not an eating dress.
Girl, I have a pair of Louboutins that I can barely stand in.
No, I have.
You have the same ones,
yes,
the Kate ones?
Those are so awful. I only have one pair of those, and I don't ever wear them. But then I found this jacket, and I was like, this is a Rebecca Taylor. Maybe I should. But every time I put it on, I feel like it's a giant fur coat. I feel like a bear.
I like it, though.
It's kind of 70s. I like it. So anyways, okay. So yeah.
So that's the big news here.
That's the big news. I'm moving, and I'm shopping my own clothes that I just gave away to my artists.
Hey, we're fucking stoked about it. And you know what? Even like talking about like artists and stuff, even at the salon, you know, it's so funny because we have 400 artists inside of the Academy, which is insane to even think about some days. And it's so funny because so many of them, I always tell them like, you forget where you come from and like where you started and everything you had to do. And I love that one of our artists actually posted, so we have a private network that we have for all of our students, and they actually posted a photo. She's like, this was my beadwork a year ago, and this was it today. And girl, when I say night and day difference, I mean night and day difference. And it was so fascinating seeing her post this because she's one of the ones that will like, she's kind of like number one like culprit of like never giving herself enough credit. And I had her do like an entire essentially like journal entry on like where she was 10 years ago. She was like, oh my God, 10 years ago I had 2 kids and like 2 trash bags of clothes. That was it. And she's like, now I make $30,000 a month. I'm like, ma'am, that's insane. And even in that, there'll be days where she's just like, oh my God, like I fucked this up, or I messed this client up, or this happened, or whatever. And I feel like we're so hard on ourselves, but without failure, there's no success.
Right.
Ever.
I think it's hard to give yourself credit until you actually can like look back and see how far you've come. And when you can do that, for me, that pushes me to like go even further. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? And I don't think it's a problem to be hard on yourself.
No.
I mean, I think that it's like, if you can honestly give yourself feedback on how to improve, that's fine. I only think it's a problem when you're so hard on yourself that it just almost paralyzes you.
Yes.
That you do nothing. You're just like, no, it's not good enough. I don't care. I'm defeated. Like,
that's what she was actually saying. She goes, I have a lot of anxiety. She goes, and it leads me to either be like, it has to be perfect, or like, fuck it, who cares? And I was like, yeah, don't sit in either one of those. Like, neither of those are actually going to benefit you. You have to find like a happy middle. I know, same. Because I'll tell you the story off camera later, actually. So, but like, I get it because everybody does that. Right. But I feel like people are so like, I don't want to be a failure. I never want to fail. I can't fail. But
it's like failing by not trying.
And you have to fail.
Yeah.
And it's like the example of like, you only know what bright sunlight is because you've seen dark days. You've seen like the rainy, forecasty days. You only know what happiness is because you've experienced sadness and pain. Right. Without that like juxtaposition, that contrast, you'll never know what one is.
Right.
So really, don't even look at it as failure. Like you can, like, hey, I fucked up. Whoops, like made a mistake, it's okay.
Right.
But take that as a like, you know what, now that this happened, when I nail it in the future, I'm gonna be so fucking stoked about it.
The thing is too, and we've said this on so many podcasts, but I like how you always say like, don't live in that moment of failure. Like everybody fucks up and that's fine. You have to be like, okay, how do I course correct? Okay, if this didn't work, well shit, why didn't it work and what do I need to do to course correct so that doesn't happen again? And that's how we learn and grow and become, expand our capacity and become better, smarter human beings, honestly. It's just figuring it out, but not letting it, again, paralyze you, figuring out what you need to do different so that you can progress.
Well, and sometimes now I'm going to end up telling this story. I'm throwing myself under the bus here. I don't even know if you know this, but I know Katie does. But even, and I feel like I can't, I want to remove my sleeves, but I can't. I'm really stuck in this now, guys. But even like, sometimes I feel like we get so focused on like, okay, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, that's gonna lead me to 4, and number 5 is my outcome. Then all of a sudden you're like, okay, 1, wait, 3.5, 4, 7, and then you eventually end up at the place you wanted, but because like the path wasn't what you expected, you're like, oh, I fucked it up, I didn't do it right, I'm so stupid, I'm bad at this, and I feel like that also like messes with us. We get so stuck on the path
when we should be
focused on the outcome. Always be focused on the outcome. And I did that the other day. Okay, you don't know about this. So Danielle and I just filmed something for the Academy inside, this was, oh my gosh, like maybe 2 weeks ago now, last week, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, the haircut.
And I did this color on this model that we had, and I put her row in, and then Danielle cut it, and it was so beautiful. Like, I was obsessed with it, but I left, I started crying on the car on the way home.
Why? Because I told you your camera settings were off?
No, that pushed me over the ledge. So I started crying because like when I did it, I like brought her out of the bowl after I'd smudged her and I was like, I didn't really like this much. I'm gonna re-smudge her and retone her. And I did it and then I like ended up like re-smudging like one more piece on her bang too. And I was like, oh my God, I wanted it to be perfect the first time. Like I wanted to nail it with no fixes, no nothing. I wanted it to be exactly how I had it in my head and it just didn't turn out that way. And then the funny thing is, and then Danielle was like, she used my camera and she's like, your camera settings are off. And I was like, honey, you fucking reel it in.
Put it together.
You fucking you put it in a box and you put the box away and you handle that shit not right fucking now. But I don't know if you noticed, I went deadpan quiet. For the rest of like the 20 minutes, I said barely like 3 words.
I thought you were triggered because I've given you so much shit about your photos and your cameras in the past, and I was like, I'm sorry. I'm like, but even the ones I sent you, you could tell your settings were off.
Well, here's the deal. So it wasn't the fact that you said it that triggered me. I was already in like a fucked up place in my head, and I told Katie, I was like, I'm working from home the rest of the day. I'm not coming into the office. The smudge was stupid. I didn't like the toner.
I've been in that though.
Yeah, and so in my head, even though like once you sent me the photos, I was like, okay, this looks beautiful. Yeah. I was like, damn it, I actually really love it. Like, we fucking nailed it. But because the path that I wanted it to be, I had an expectation.
You had an idea of what you thought the end result should look like, and so you couldn't appreciate the actual end result that was beautiful. Equally as beautiful, maybe even better.
Yeah, I could not appreciate the fact that what I wanted it to look like, it looked like that. Right. But because I had to adjust a few things and course correct because of a quote unquote failure, I was too stuck in you fucked it up, that was stupid, it looked like I was so in it, and then when Danielle was like, your camera settings are off, I was like, you guys, it's like that one thing that pushed you over the ledge, which by the way, they were. I then harassed Danielle every day, about 3 times a day, send me your camera settings, send me your camera settings. I was like, Danielle's gonna fire me if I ask her all the time, but can you send me your camera settings? And guess what? I ended up going through resetting my entire camera, and I went through and changed a couple more things, and I took photos yesterday, and no weirdness now.
Well, you know what is so crazy though? I'm glad that I did, hearing that story, because I didn't know that story, I'm glad that I did take my camera, because I was using Ani's because my battery's dead, and then I found a battery and I was able to use my camera. And I think if we would have just used your camera, you probably would have questioned your color that you did because it looked so different.
Honestly, I would have had to throw away the footage.
I think you would have been like, oh my God, it was garbage, I didn't like it because it was photoing like reddish, very red.
To be honest, I would have had him throw away all the color footage and just use your cut footage.
But that's what's so funny. I'm kind of glad that I took photos with my camera because I was like, Ani, I didn't edit this. This is what it looked like in person. And so she was like, oh, okay. And so you probably had a moment where you're like, oh, it was beautiful. Okay.
Literally, once you sent me the photos, I text Katie, I go, I'm okay now. It looked really pretty.
You know that happened to me for a class. I was so stuck on an outcome for a model, and I overthought it, and I did like a million baby lights, and then I kind of fucked up and toned it too long, and it went darker than I wanted, and I wanted pops, and I was like, I'm an off player, I quit. I'm not doing
And I know what model this is.
Yes, and I was so pissed. And I remember being like, I'm just feeling defeated, and I went home and I was like, I can't show this. Like, I'm a better artist than this. Like, I was like kind of being a diva, like, to be honest. But I was kind of just being hard on myself. And Katie literally was like my cheerleader. She calls me, she's like, Danielle, she was like giving me like a pep speech. She's like, you're a great artist. That is a beautiful color. It is exactly how it should be.
That's Katie!
And I was like, you're right, Katie. And
do you know she tried to do that to me, and I go, okay, Katie, thank you. And she's like, Ani, seriously. I was like, okay. She ended up, there's a food place called Coastal Kitchen. They have the best fried chicken I've had in my whole fucking life. She ordered fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and chocolate chip cookies. She goes, I know this will make you happy. I was like, I mean, it kind of does. But also, and it's, like when you're in that place, and I'm sharing this because I feel like everyone looks at us and they're like, Ani and Danielle do everything perfect. No, we don't. Honestly, like we mess stuff up all the time, but I feel like we've learned to like accept it, but even we have hard moments of being like, well, I fucking suck, so cool, don't want to do that again.
It's almost like I get my feelings out, and then I'm like, okay, now that I word vomited on you, like there were some things with even the salon today. We have like a team meeting on Fridays, then we come do the podcast, and we're like talking about stuff, and I'm like, and I just looked on and I'm like, I'm so frustrated and so irritated right now. I'm so irritated. I'm not irritated at you. I'm not irritated at the situation. I'm kind of irritated at myself right now, but I kind of just have to get my feelings out. And then we were like, okay, so where are we at? Where's the drawing board? What do we need to do? What do we need to do right now? Let's start making a checklist of things that we need to do right now in order to correct this problem.
Yes.
And if you don't do that, then you're gonna stay stuck in the same situation. I always like compare it to like a hamster wheel. You're just gonna continue on that hamster wheel, and you're gonna think like, I'm working so hard, I'm working so fast, I'm working, but you're not course correcting along the way, and you're not allowing yourself to fail in order to grow.
And that's why I think it's, if you give it the word failure, we're like, I failed. Sometimes I'm like, fucked up. Oops, that was like a my bad. Wasn't great. I can adjust it. It can be course corrected. But it's, guys, those are learning moments. And you have to think like everything that brought you to the successful place that you are today, even if you feel like you're not quote unquote there yet, you had to learn a lot of things along the way, and learning those things puts you in a better place in the future to do or not do something again.
You know what's crazy too, and I don't know if you do this, Ani, but I'll find myself doing old habits, patterns, and behaviors, and I have to remind myself like, you're fucking better than this.
Ooh,
You're a bigger human being. You how dare you go back there? You know what I mean? And I kind of have to have that come to Jesus moment with myself. Like, how dare you? You're not that human being anymore. But being aware and in check with that, I'm like, okay, because we're gonna do things that like from the past, and it's gonna trigger us, and it's gonna like again, it's just gonna like make us feel small and shitty and crappy. But you have to not allow yourself, like, if you have a reaction to something, like, just remind yourself, like, no, you're not that person anymore. You're a bigger person. Okay, get over that. What do you need to do next?
And sometimes it's even good to just ask yourself, like, okay, why is that making me feel this way?
Why am I triggered?
Why is that thing that person said triggering me to feel this way? Because then it could be like you've been repeating a story in your own head that like, then you're like, oh my God, that affected me so much because I secretly think that about myself, or I feel that way, but it might not even be true.
Right.
So those are things you have to pay attention to. It's not just like, oh, I'm triggered, like, fuck you. No, it's really good to be like, okay, why is this affecting me this way?
I remember
like,
you were telling me, it was a couple of podcasts ago, that you were like, you had a girlfriend or something. She was like, Ani, do you remember when this and this and this? And you were like, honestly, not really. And she was like, oh my God, like, we take like the smallest thing and we like blow it up to this huge story. And so sometimes you have to like literally like allow yourself to forgive yourself. And like let go of all that weight or whatever it is, so that you can move forward in business and relationships in whatever it is, and stop creating stories. Creating stories is self-sabotaging. It really is. And I think that we do that because we don't want to get outside of our comfort zone. So we tell ourselves stories so that we feel safe. But ultimately you have to look at what is the end result that you're going after. And it's so freeing to be like, okay, like, get out of your, like, let your feelings come out. And then logically look at whatever situation you're in, like, how do I move forward?
Well, and it's just so
how do we like bring this into like artist talk, like salon talk?
Artist talk, I mean, for salon talk, guys, you're gonna fuck up a client. I hate to say it to you. Like, you're gonna mess it up. You are! You're gonna mess it up. You're never gonna do everything perfect. A client is gonna think that you overtoned, that you undertoned, that it's too light, too dark, something needs to be adjusted. Like, it just happens. I'm so sorry to tell you, you are not going to nail everything 100% of the time. But also knowing a client coming back and being like, hey, could this be adjusted? It doesn't mean you're shitty. It doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you don't know how to formulate. It's, guys, we're dealing with chemicals. Like, it's going to happen. And I realize I sound like a fucking hypocrite just saying that I cried when I left the salon the other day because something didn't go my way, but I'm also a human being.
You know what, too, going back to color, like, I find it's good to under-promise and over-deliver. So for me, like, it is chemicals, and sometimes it might go a certain direction. And so even for me, like, and clients, it's funny, they sit down and they think they know what they want, but they don't. Like, I had a client the other week, she's like, can we just put, like, some pops of highlights in my hair, but I don't want to highlight my hair. And I'm like, I instead of, in the past, I might have been like, yeah, totally. Like, I would know it wouldn't blend, but I'd be like, but she wants pops of highlights and she doesn't want to bleach her hair. I have to do this. I have to offer because that's what she wants. But if I gave her what she said she thought she wanted, she'd leave looking like she had cheap hair. Like, literally, like, because I wasn't the professional, and I had to say, okay, well, if you don't highlight your hair, it's not going to connect. I'm like, so we can spend more time and we can highlight your hair, but if that's really your main goal is to not, then we actually have to go with this color of extensions. And then, like, kind of have really good communication and clear expectations with your clients, so then you're like, oh, okay, so then when they're done, they're not surprised, and then when you communicate, like, hey, it's not going to connect, and it's not going to blend, and it's quite frankly, I tell them, I'll be like, it's going to look like cheap extensions. They're like, oh, I don't want that. Okay, you're the professional, like, do your thing.
But also, I feel like you've learned those lessons from probably giving someone something that looks like cheap extensions.
For my first decade of my career, I'd be like, why don't I like it? Oh, because what she was trying to communicate, I did exactly what she said, but she didn't go to cosmetology school, so why did I let her dictate the outcome, right? I like literally, and then I'm like sweating. Well, stylists all have this. You go home and you like that.
It keeps you up at night.
Like, it's the craziest shit ever. You're like, she's gonna text me tomorrow. I'm sweating because you're like, and then nobody texts you, and then finally I've had text clients been like, I didn't like your hair. Can you come back in?
Dude, how about this? I won't say who it is, but I did a client probably a few weeks ago now, and she's been to like other artists in general, and she wasn't like always the happiest. And yeah, like she's a pretty picky client. And you know, like when you guys all know when a client comes in and they're like, no one's ever been able to do my hair right, you're like, oh no.
I take it on as like, well, fuck it, I'll just do what I want, and if you don't like it.
I'm just like, for me, I'm like, yeah, all right, here it goes. So I was like, show me some photos, let me see what it is you like. And she showed me like all these photos of her hair was like really blonde, like all these things. And I'm like, do you want middle part or side part? And she's like, oh, middle. But literally every photo she showed me was a side part. And I was like, well, I'm not doing a middle part because you fucking hate it. You hate it. Yeah. So I ended up doing a side part, doing blonde, all these things. And then I was literally, when she left, she was like, I love it. Oh my God. And I was like, we'll see. Okay. Because I know some people go home and they're like, I love it. I hate it.
Yeah,
and
totally. My husband hates my hair. That's my favorite one is when they call it.
Fuck,
I'm like,
man.
Don't use the husband excuse. Just say you didn't like it. Then you ask your husband, babe, do you not like this piece? Yeah, me neither. Okay, my husband doesn't like it.
Literally. Yeah, so then, but I'm telling you, so I work on Thursdays. For the next like 4 days, I was literally every day texting the salon. Did so-and-so text back? Did so-and-so text back? And they're like, no. And then finally they're like, hey, she texts, she wants her photos. I'm like,
You're like, okay.
Oh, literally, then I was like, I can breathe again. Because that was...
It's stressful. It's stressful being an artist. Like honestly, if I tried to go to hair school now, I'd be like, oh, that's too stressful. I'm not gonna do it. I remember when I first started doing hair, I was 20. I mean, I started hair school when I was 19, graduated when I was 20. I've been doing hair for 17 years. Yeah, and I remember I would like be getting ready to go to work, and I would be like have this pit in my stomach, and I'm like, I'm gonna throw up. I'm just gonna throw up on the client.
All over.
I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything. Like I'm garbage. Like I don't know what I'm doing. And then I would get there, and I just you have to fuck up in order to learn, even down to how you color hair, how you cut hair, everything you do.
Yes.
And that's how it works with the art. It's how it works with the business. It's how it works with hiring an assistant. Like you don't know what you're doing until you allow yourself to jump into the pool and start to see if you can know how to swim.
Well, and
then figure it out.
How about this? We actually have a student. Do you notice I took my dress off? Yes. I just placed it over my shirt.
I just looked over. I'm like, how did you get your dress off?
I was getting hot. I was sweaty in this fucking dress. I can't do it. But even so, we actually have a student that she's like, okay, so I've been practicing MBR for about 6 months. I still haven't taken on any real clients. I've done a few models, and then I send them to someone else to get their tightenings because I'm too nervous to do it again. I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah. Me and Katie basically like bitch slapped her in the nicest of ways. We're like, what are you doing? Like, she's like, I just want to be great. I'm like, you're never gonna be great if you don't just do it. She's like, but what if I mess it up? I'm like, you're going to.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I tell everybody. You're going to fuck it up. So honestly, if you just go in with that mentality of, I'm not going to be perfect 100% of the time, but I can take my non-perfect moments and learn from them, you're good. Like, that's literally best case scenario.
It's crazy, too. I like the saying of, like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing, because I think that the older we get, and, like, say you're an artist that you've been doing hair for 15, 20 years, but you've been doing literally the same foil techniques for 15, 20 years. You've never updated your license. You maybe only do hair, like, once every other week or whatever it is. And I think that we hold on to the title of like, oh, well, I've been doing hair for 18 years, but you don't have the repetition of an artist like myself or even Ani that has been doing hair for that long. So even though you want to hold on to that identity of I'm an artist that's been doing hair for 18 years, you're just not there yet. You don't have the repetition, and you weren't willing to try new things in order to fail to become a better artist. So I think oftentimes as we get older, and that might be hard to hear if you're an artist listening to this show, like you're not as established as you think you are. So otherwise you would have the result. And I remember being 10 years into my craft, looking at other people's work, looking at artists, in Beverly Hills or whatever, and I was like, I can do that. And I had to have a real come to Jesus moment with myself that was like, Danielle, if you owned that salon in Beverly Hills, if you had that education that person has, if you had that product line that they would, then you're just not there yet. Yeah. Like even though you think your work's that good, there's so many other areas and you're just not there yet. So even though I felt like I was a seasoned artist, at 10 years in, I had to go, I was hungry. I was like, no, well, I want to become that. So there's this level of like, kind of like having the confidence, but also submitting to learning and growing.
Because if you have the confidence, but you're not okay with course corrections and feedback and things like that, honestly, it's just your ego. And I'll have you consider this. If you're sitting there currently and you're triggered, you're bugged, and you're annoyed by anything Danielle just said, you are that artist. And that is such a hard thing to hear, because nobody wants to feel like someone looked at them and said, you're not that good. You might be great, but not as good as you probably think you are.
Right. And I think the further down I get in my career, I have more respect. Like, the more successful I get, the more respect I have for other artists in my industry.
Yes.
Like, literally, because I'm like, I know the blood, sweat, and tears it takes, and I'm not even maybe at your level. Like, you know, I aspire to be at your level, and I'm so respectful, whereas in the beginning I was like, their work's not that good.
Like, whatever.
Yeah, I was like,
I could do that if I wanted
I
to.
could probably do that color if I wanted to. But now I'm like in this place of appreciation where I'm like, okay, I'm hungry again. Like, how do I get to that level? And I can even look at young artists and be like, come on, make it through.
You'll get there.
You're
just
gonna get
push.
there. Like, just be willing to fall on your face. Like, be willing to fail. And through failure, you're gonna be a lot stronger than you know that you are.
Seriously, and that's why even I think like smudging and rooting, now that that's such a big thing, and like money pieces and stuff, like honestly, you only get good at it by trying and fucking it up potentially.
The biggest thing I teach my students is because I think, especially, I don't know why, but we think that, like, hair is an art, so we think it has to be right the first time, right? And then we're even nervous to tell the client, like, you know, I want to retone this again, or should I overtone that? I'm actually going to Malibu it, and we're going to, like, you know what I mean? We're always scared to, like, admit to the client that we think we failed. But I reframe it with my artists. I said, you didn't fail. You are working until the job is done. You did not fail. So if you don't like that blonde piece, if you don't like those lowlights, if you don't like those highlights, what do you know you need to do? Like, you
redo it, fix it.
There's been times literally where I like get done and it doesn't connect, and I'm like styling their hair, and I'm not like, oh, I fucked up. I'm like, hey, I'm not happy with how this piece is connecting. I don't ask them if they want a low light. I'm like, I'm going to put a little low light right here. You're going to be here for another 20, 30 minutes. And they're like, oh, okay. Oh, that's so great. You're so detailed. And if anything, they're kind of like, wow, you care. You really care about me.
You care so much.
Yeah, and I'm like, I do. My name is on this. I want it to look beautiful. I want you to have a good experience. I want you to feel beautiful. And so I always just tell my artists, when it comes down to the art, you didn't fail. You just work until the job is done. And if you have another client that's waiting, then you go over and you say, hi, I'm gonna go ahead and like get you started, or can I get you coffee or lunch or whatever? I got to adjust one little thing on her hair. It's gonna take me about 15, 20 minutes. You know, if I'm that client sitting in the chair, I'm like, wow, same thing. I'm like, that's really nice that she's like,
cool.
She's working till the job's done, because as a client, I know you can feel like anxiety when you're feeling like, okay, is she watching my hair? Is she taking care of me? She's working on 5 other people. Does she care about me? And that's one thing that I really try to teach my artists inside my salon is like, I don't care how busy you are. I want every person who sits at in our chairs feel like we care about them. That we're not just like shoveling them through like a factory, like they're worried about their hair frying off or whatever it is. So.
I mean, and we're coming to the end of the podcast, actually. So guys, the biggest thing I want you to take away is don't look at your failure as like you suck and you're a piece of shit. Look at it as just a learning lesson. And now that's something that you get to put kind of like in your book of knowledge and move forward with, and know like, hey, next time, don't do this or jig, adjust, change, because truly that's the only way to success is to fail. Yeah. That's it. That's the only way.
Now sometimes I even get excited a little bit when shit goes sideways. I'm kind of like, okay, well, what systems and processes can we create? And now we can share this with the Academy students, we can share this with others. So even look at it as like, as you become a better individual, how many people in your life is that going to affect, right? And that to me is like, I'm like, okay, I signed up for this. Like, I'm going to have to fail, because in failure, I know I'm also going to help a ton of other artists out too. So kind of consider that too, whatever industry you're in maybe. Like, if you're willing to fail, what is the outcome that could really show to other people in your life and in your community and in your industry? So anyways, we have some exciting news.
Yeah, so
more exciting news.
Yes, DKW Styling Academy will be going public by the time you guys hear this in about a week.
Right.
So if you want to be one of the first to know, go to nbr.education and be sure to put in your name and your email, and we'll be notifying you ASAP.
Right, so the Academy, I said this last week, but it is an online, think of it as an online hair school. It's mostly done virtual, but we do have some live events that we do as well as part of the Academy, as part of the requirements to become a licensed Natural Beauty Rose artist. Another exciting news, we have finally this year, we are coming out with a Natural Beauty Rose nationwide locator. I have trained thousands of artists at this point, but I really only felt good about referring or telling people who had been to the Academy, who had a little more training, who had those qualifications that I was looking for. So that's coming out
before the end of February.
Yes. Yeah. So we're excited. So anyway, stay tuned every week for a new episode of the Big Money Stylist Podcast. Again, it comes out every Tuesday. Make sure to share it with your friends, and we'll see you guys next week.